Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom, where we bring you engaging conversations and respectful disagreement across the social spectrum.
Injected with the quirks of everyday life.
Curl up as we navigate the complexities of this modern world with all the humor and warmth we can muster.
And the occasional gentle ribbing. We're
glad
you're here. Happy listening.
Howdy, howdy. Welcome to Two Millennials and Mom. How's everybody doing this week?
I'm good. How about you?
Here.
I'm good.
It has definitely been a week.
I was going to say
a week.
We've been having a time over here today. It has been an exciting morning in the TMAM studios.
But we're here. Let's go.
We're here. I'm excited for this week because this one is kind of just a fun one, not super heavy. I'm ready for it.
We need some weird. So I have us covered. So today we are creeping into the mysterious.
Hang on.
Yeah.
You should not say that. Just as a heads up, we need some weird.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry.
I said it and I was like, that's really strange. I don't know. I don't even know. Okay, I'm going to kick the intro back off again. Shut up, Cole.
I think we should leave that in.
Lord, it's just that kind of day, y'all. But if we're not laughing, you're crying. And I'm just crying because of allergies, so don't mind me.
And today we're choosing laughter.
Today we're choosing laughter.
I read the other day, pick the struggle.
What does that mean?
Choose what you want to bitch about and stick with it.
So today we are creeping into the mysterious, the bizarre, and the just plain fun world of conspiracy theories. We are not here to unravel the mysteries and the secrets of the universe. We are also not here to debate whether or not the earth is flat. It is not. Sorry to break it to you. But we wanted to explore why conspiracy theories seem to capture our imaginations, which ones are totally off the rails, and which ones have us scratching our head going, could this be a thing? Could this be true? So grab your tinfoil hat, or don't, and let's get into it.
I just feel like it would be funny if we all three put our little tinfoil hats on now.
Dang it, we're so unprepared.
Yeah, we missed an opportunity on that one. Okay, so before we get too far, are there any conspiracy theories that like you'd staunchly believe are true?
I mean,
No.
besides Avril Lavigne being replaced by a stunt double, a body double, besides that one, I don't think so.
Okay, so you're going all in on Avril Lavigne. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
You?
I'm pretty sure the CIA at least helped kill Kennedy.
I'm going to tell you, after doing my research, I have a different perspective.
I think there was at least some involvement there.
Did you read about the fake badge guy that said he was in the CIA? He was behind the fence on the grassy knoll, but there was no Secret Service personnel assigned there.
Wait, was he CIA or Secret Service?
He said he was Secret Service.
Okay.
But there was no Secret Service assigned in that area.
I have heard.
But he had credentials.
Well, I mean, if he works for the company, then they would be able to get him credentials.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they do.
So
and
we'll
what
talk
kind
about
of
that.
credentials? I'm so curious.
I mean, he had Secret Service credentials that said he was, but there was nobody supposed to be there.
He was just volunteering on his time off.
What a nice guy.
Okay.
But Cole, wait,
Sorry.
what about you? Is there any that you inherently believe?
I mean, he said he thinks the CIA.
I think the CIA was involved in JFK.
Sorry, I got
They were mad at him. He was mad at them.
Lots of people were mad at him. I think there's a memoir from his brother that somebody was telling me about, but it sounds really, really interesting. But I had read a book about the CIA last year, and it goes into kind of detailing that relationship and how John and Robert were kind of butting heads with a lot of other department heads at that time. It was really interesting, but
which I really didn't know. So I guess we're just going to dive into JFK here. So the conspiracy theory is that there was more than one shooter. It wasn't Oswald. He was really just a patsy that went down. So he was arrested. He was oddly assassinated himself 2 days later by
Jack Ruby, wasn't it?
It was Jack Ruby, who had nothing to do with being where he was at the time that he was there. So that kind of made that one weird. What I really didn't know is that Oswald had been under surveillance by the CIA and that there are rumors that he is quoted as saying that he was going to kill Kennedy while he was in Mexico about 2 weeks before the assassination. So they have reason to believe that he talked openly about that. They also think that he was meeting with the KGB, especially a KGB assassination ops person.
See, what I have heard is that Oswald had tried to defect to Russia and was such a loon that they were just like, we don't really want you, go away.
What does that say about you when even Russia's like, nah, we're good?
Yeah, that's not a good sign. But he was also pro-Castro, so then the Cubans came into it. And if you think about that, I mean, the Bay of Pigs had gone on, and that was part of what had really upset the CIA, why they were mad at JFK. They felt like he should have done some things that he didn't do, and that he really hadn't supported them when he was supposed to. So there was a whole lot going on there with those, like you said, with those tensions.
I think it's really interesting. We might talk about this a little bit later, because one of the ones that I want to talk about also kind of has a lot to do with JFK and that era. But I think it's really, really interesting when you think about that era of American politics and policy and statesmanship, it is just absolutely flooded with conspiracy theories, because there is a lot of irrefutable evidence that the government was just telling lies all the time.
Yeah.
Everything was a secret. No one was on the same side. It was just this whole kind of Game of Thrones-esque like saga of all of these different people that were supposed to be on the same team, not really being on the same team, and lying to the entire country in the process.
But it's so weird when you juxtapose that against Camelot and how people loved him and how they grieved when he was killed, and even the legacy that he still has, how much they loved his children and his son and even Jackie. And then you put all of that context. I mean, first off, I don't think you can dispute that he was a womanizer. I mean, that seems very well proven, whether you say Marilyn Monroe or not. We're not even going to get into that one. But, I mean, it's like you say, Cole, there was so much going on, and there was so much hidden and so many lies. It's such a weird thing when you come back and you go, and yet he's still very revered as one of the great presidents.
The dude had riz, that's for sure.
He definitely did. So there was a guy named Gary Underhill. He was a World War II military intelligence agent. And Cole, he supported your theory that the CIA was involved, that they were behind the assassination. He also died a little bit of a mysterious death later on. So there's that. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting, there is a representative, Anna Paulina Luna, out of Florida. She's a Republican out of Florida. She's now on the House Oversight Committee, and she's part of the task force for declassification of federal secrets. And she believes that there is definitely something going on here. I think the interesting part to me is that as young as she is, I'm surprised that she's even interested in it.
Right.
But she's very, and she says that there is a video that we have not seen that puts Oswald near the vehicle that Kennedy was in that would totally disprove that he was the shooter.
She's a little out there in general.
Yeah.
But watching their discussions about this as these files have been unclassified recently has been certainly thought-provoking.
Yeah.
So if the scene, if you will, was like that in the 60s, do you think it's different now? Do you think it's worse?
What do you mean?
I think it's just better.
Everybody's sleeping with each other. Everybody's telling each other lies. It's all just political propaganda to make each individual look a specific type of way to a certain audience. Is it Game of Thrones?
Callie just fell over. I think there's a lot of that there. I just think it's performed differently.
Yeah.
I think that's what social media smears are all about. I mean, look at Blake Lively and what's his name, Cal?
Justin Baldoni.
Yes, Baldoni. I mean, those are just somebody's got a smear campaign going on.
I was
Right,
like,
but Blake Lively isn't in a position of power.
No, I think she's in a position of influence, but I see what you're saying.
You asked that question, Cole, and my immediate reaction was that it's just better covered up now. But then I started thinking about it, and I don't know that it's better covered up. I think that it's more accepted, first and foremost. And secondly, I think it's probably less covered up and more kind of out there, especially with the influence of social media, and everybody has a camera on them at all times, and the availability of information. And I think that has made it just more acceptable, more tolerated. I mean, it just, why can't we all just be good people?
Because good is subjective.
I guess.
I mean, that's a whole bigger question on
that's
good and
that's
evil. That
Next week's episode of Two Millennials and Mom.
Are people inherently good? Is that question? And I don't.
Well, for one, I would tell you no, because I've met some people who aren't inherently good.
So are they inherently bad?
Again, good and bad are subjective.
I was going to immediately
What's good
say,
for
like,
me
yes.
may not be good for someone else. I mean, I think that's idealistic to look at the world and see all the problems with it and think that people are inherently good. I think that that's pretty obvious that that's not the case. But
I
again,
think that there are some people who are inherently good. I think
Sure.
that there are some people who are inherently bad.
Yeah, exactly. But again, that is subjective. That's from your point of view. Those people who you think are inherently bad may think that they're doing the best thing for either themselves or the people around them, which from their perspective makes them inherently good.
And you inherently bad.
Yeah.
I was really thinking more along the lines of Jeffrey Dahmer being bad.
I mean, again, Jeffrey Dahmer, from his own perspective, may have been good.
Okay.
I'm not saying that from my perspective. But I mean, this is.
And off the rails we go.
Just like that. 5 minutes in.
I love it.
Well, we're 15 minutes in, but I mean, that's the bigger picture is everyone thinks they're good.
I don't know that I agree with that.
I don't know that everybody thinks that they're good. I just don't think that they think that their badness matters as much or should be suppressed. I think selfishness is a powerful tool.
Right. And if I'm doing it out of selfishness because that benefits me, that's good for me. That justifies what I'm doing.
I mean, I guess that's true.
Okay. I'm going to pull us back to the subject at hand. Here was something that surprised me. 65% of Americans believe that there was more than Oswald involved. He was not a lone shooter. I was shocked at that, but 65%.
Okay.
I would have told you that was low.
Just to math that up right now, that means 2 out of the 3 of us believe that. And 2 out of the 3 of us have already come out on this episode in the last 15 minutes and said that they inherently believe that.
I didn't say inherently. I said I certainly have questions now that I didn't have before I started.
And so we're at 66% before we even weigh in Callie's opinion.
Dang it, I hate it
Or
when
thoughts.
she does math.
It's horrible. But so I'd say that's probably pretty reasonable. And I'm kind of with Cole. I bet in the grand scheme of things, it's probably a little low.
I was surprised about that. I mean, I expected people to question it, but I didn't expect people to be firm enough to say, oh no, he was not a lone shooter. So one of the things that was about this is what they call the magic bullet. This is a bullet that inked 7 different wounds. It went through Kennedy's neck, out his chest, hit Conley, and ricocheted, hit his wrist. There were 7 wounds. One bullet somehow changed directions midair, which may be because it hit a bone. And yet, it was in almost pristine condition when it was found later, laying on a gurney at Parkland.
Yeah, that's not how bullets work.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
A bullet hits and has a tendency to tumble. What caliber was this bullet?
It was a rifle bullet, so I don't know. 270.
hundreds of different rifle calibers,
I don't
but
know.
they're going to behave differently.
So then here's the other side of that. 3D technology proved that it could happen. So you have both sides that say,
Whose 3D technology proved it, though? The CIA's?
No, don't ask me that question. It was more recent than that. I don't think it was CIA. I think it was an independent study, and the 3D technology supported the possibility that it could happen.
The possibility, sure. The probability, I would say, would be exceptionally low for something like that.
Yeah. And again, I still think you get a pristine bullet out of that. If a bullet hits a bone hard enough to change trajectory,
It would
it's not going to
100%
be.
deform the bullet. Unless that
Absolutely.
bullet is made out of titanium.
Absolutely. So there was also the Umbrella Man. Have y'all ever heard about the Umbrella Man?
Yes.
What is the Umbrella Man?
I had not heard about him, but there was a man standing on the grassy knoll with an open umbrella on a sunshiny, clear day.
So he had a sunbrella.
His name was Louis Stephen Wett. He says it was a protest against Kennedy's father because Kennedy's father had appeased Nazi Germany years before. Now, first off, that's a weird thing. I mean, so in the Germanys would have been in the late 30s, early 40s, you would think. We're in the 60s. So 20 years later, you're protesting something that occurred by a person who's not even present. But the way it happened, he raised the umbrella coal at the same time that the shots were fired. So they assumed that it was not a regular umbrella.
I mean, I do remember like watching like old like History Channel spy gadget TVs and having like personal like pin guns or so like an umbrella gun. I mean, plausible.
Well, sure. Get Smart had a phone in the sole of his shoe. Anything. I mean, think of all of those
Yeah, but
gadgets.
Get
Bond
Smart
had.
is a fictional movie. I'm talking about
This is my
actual
story.
things that existed.
My story.
But if you tie all of this together, who would have easy access to weird tools like that besides
But
the CIA?
Yeah. But I mean, the mafia was also kind of involved there because they were also mad at him and Robert because they were doing things to shut the mafia down. Like I said, the one about using Cuba was really kind of a shock to me that one was there. I mean, if you want to say who benefited the most from his death, you have to look at LBJ. He became president. But that's about all that's really said about that is that motive wise, he might have had the best motive, but not
I mean,
really.
is there any other evidence that they were on bad terms or even questionable terms? I don't know enough about it.
I feel like I heard something recently, and this was probably from like a Rogan podcast, but I feel like I heard something recently about like a recording talking about LBJ having an affair with Jackie.
Oh.
Yes, Jackie O. Correct.
Stop. I've not heard that one. And I
But I think
cannot
that's within the
imagine
last
that
like
just from
couple of
her
weeks.
side. I mean, Lady Bird, I'd love to say Lady Bird would have done something, but I'm not sure she would have.
I mean, power makes people do weird things.
I don't know. So all of these papers came available recently. There's still some redaction to some of that, supposedly for national security. It's still years and years and years of investigation. There's really no concrete proof one way or the other that a larger conspiracy happened. So I think this one's never going to be solved.
Really
I think
disappointed.
it will.
You
Yeah.
do?
In time.
Yeah, I think eventually the truth will come out. Now, I think it's...
How? Most of the people involved are dead now.
Yeah, but I think that our government at the time was already very heavily bureaucratic. I think there's a paper trail that is just not
being connected.
Yeah, I think it is archived. I mean, if you take a look at how much of what the Warren Commission covered is still classified.
I don't think it is.
I mean, they're going through a declassification process right now,
True.
but as far as I'm aware, there is still some that has not been released to the public.
There is. There's some CIA and FBI papers that are outside of the scope of the archives that have not been released. You're right. But if I was the CIA and I was doing this, I sure as hell wouldn't leave a paper trail.
Yeah, but
We may
sometimes
never
when you're a
know.
government agency, you don't have a choice.
Unless you use Signal.
Oop.
Sorry.
And to the next one.
Was I not supposed to say that?
Oh, no, I think you're fine. I thought it was funny.
My point was, I don't think that the government is always actively on the up and up, no matter the administration, on the up and up trying to preserve a paper trail. This just happens to be a recent thing that they came out saying, no, we don't want to.
I agree.
It was just a joke. So what else do we have to talk about JFK?
Done with JFK.
Well, I am almost done with JFK.
Hit it.
Because kind of going back to that same era, there has been for quite some time, but in recent years, there has been kind of a resurgence in this conspiracy theory that the moon landing was faked. And Mom, you watched a movie here a couple of months ago about this kind of.
Yeah, with Tatum Channing.
Channing Tatum.
Damn it, I always do that backwards.
And Johanna Scarlettson.
Yes, and Johanna Scarlettson. Yes.
Thanks, y'all.
Gentle ribbing.
Anyways, people have been talking about for, decades at this point, about this theory that the moon landing was faked, partially because of the government's need to kind of satisfy that goal from JFK to be the first nation to put a man on the moon and bring him back to Earth safely.
Beat Russia.
Yeah, and beat Russia. And so, we're talking about billions of dollars spent on the Apollo program trying to beat Russia to the moon, and there being a pretty significant paper trail of all of the research and development and preparation that went into that program. And there's all kinds of stuff about different reasons why the moon landing can't be real. And so, like, people would say the flag is waving. The flag couldn't wave in a vacuum. And so I just kind of wanted to run through some of those different conspiracy theories, some of those different reasons why people think the moon landing was fake, and the rebuttals that have come out from NASA and other experts to try and refute those. So the flag is waving has been a really big one. I think it's really interesting.
A vacuum, though?
Yeah.
And there's no wind.
Space is a vacuum.
But aren't there like swirls of dust around Mars?
Saturn.
Yeah, but being in a vacuum doesn't stop
movement.
Something from existing. It doesn't stop matter from being there. It just means that there is no pressure from air around those objects to have an impact on it.
Right. So how would the dust move around Mars?
Because Mars has gravity. And that dust is in space being affected by gravity from every other physical object in the universe.
Oh, okay.
We're going to need to go back to Cole's Got Answers.
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay. So there is dust in orbit around Mars for the same reason that Earth has a moon, because there is a celestial object that has been entrapped by the gravity of a larger celestial object, Earth.
Okay.
So here's the thing. If you have an object in space and another object passes that, these both have gravity. The larger object will have more gravity.
Okay.
So when the moon, the running theory right now is that actually an asteroid crashed into the Earth, and that broke off a chunk of the Earth, and that fused with the asteroid, which created the moon. So because it had slowed down enough and was now within a range of Earth, that it had a strong enough gravitational pull towards it that it trapped it within its orbit. So that is why the moon orbits around the Earth. It is also why the Earth orbits around the sun, because the sun has so much more mass than everything else in the solar system.
Okay. Sorry, I never told anybody I was an astrologer. I'm totally kidding.
Anyways.
Astronomy. It was a joke.
Space is a vacuum. There's no atmosphere on the moon,
Okay.
but people said the flag is waving. But if you take a look at a series of photographs of, I believe if it's Buzz Aldrin planting the flag, it looks like it is like waving, but it's on like an L-shaped
Bracket.
rod that holds it out. But it was also folded up and like vacuum sealed for the flight. So when they unfurled it and put it on its rod to plant it, it's crumpled. So it looks kind of like it's waving. But there's one where Buzz is saluting the flag and it looks like it's crumpled. And then there's another one where he is no longer saluting the flag and he's turned around and it still looks exactly the same. It hasn't moved. So that's kind of one of the things that they use to refute that, hey, the flag is not waving. It's on a wire. It was just crumpled.
Okay.
Some of the other ones, no stars in the photos. This one is pretty easy to explain. If you go into a parking lot at night that has lights above it and take a picture, you're probably not going to get any stars because the nearer or more powerful light is going to wash out the background due to the camera's exposure. The same could be said for when you're during lunar daytime and the sun is lighting up the surface of the moon and the reflection of sunlight off of the earth is lighting up the surface of the moon. It's very likely that in a high exposure setting, you are going to get no stars in the background. But there are other photographs that were taken by the astronauts with different exposure settings that do have stars. And so there is kind of in that same vein, people say things like, oh, the shadows don't line up or there's multiple shadows. Well, again, when you're on a white surface wearing a radiation resistant, reflective, bright white astronaut suit and you're in lunar daytime and there is nothing there to filter that sunlight when it hits the moon's surface, guess what? When the sun hits the moon's surface and it reflects down to Earth, we see that reflected as the moon being white because it's a light and you can see in moonlight because it is just light being reflected. Well, the same could be said for a craggy, uneven lunar surface, also with astronauts wearing reflective gear to protect them from the light of the sun in a situation with no atmosphere. And so there's just all kinds of stuff. People talk about the Van Allen radiation belts. And so
I've never heard of that. What's that?
Episode
the Van
part
Allen
2.
radiation belts are belts of radiation that surround the Earth. It is radioactive particles that are in a belt that wraps around, that was discovered by
Van Allen.
Van Allen. I can't remember his first name, but essentially it is a belt of radiation that is like trapped within the magnetic field of the Earth. And people talk about, well, we wouldn't be able to travel through those Van Allen radiation belts. The doses of radiation that the astronauts would have been subjected to would have been way too high, except for the fact that Van Allen calculated it himself and said, no, we can get through the Van Allen radiation belts. And other people have gone through and calculated and said, yeah, no, we can make it through the Van Allen radiation belts. It's not like it is. Could it be dangerous? Yes. But if you move through them quickly, you can get through it without significant exposure. In fact, the path that they calculated for the astronauts for the Apollo missions is about the same amount of radiation you would receive from living at sea level for 3 years, or about what is allowed for those who work in the nuclear industry for 1 year. So so you've got all of these people who are, they wouldn't be able to make it through. We can't do it today. And it's not that we can't do it today. It's that we aren't doing it today. We don't really have a reason to go to the moon. It's not really resource heavy. That would be more efficient to go to the moon to get it than staying here. But at the same time, you have, like we talked about earlier, this US government at the time who, historically speaking, during that era, was lying to people all of the time. I mean, they were shooting nukes into space and blowing them up in secret. And I mean, you've got all kinds of different conspiracy theories around JFK and around the presidents of that era. I mean, you've got Nixon in that era. You've got Watergate. You've got all of these people, all of this established government that kind of has been this projected as this iconoclastic good in the world that is doing kind of some really shady stuff.
Yeah.
And so I can understand why people would say, yeah, I get it. This looks like it was fake. And there's good motive to fake something like that. But the biggest piece of evidence that I think there is against it being fake is the number of people that were involved in that project. And so there were almost 500,000 people working on the Apollo project during its existence. I mean, 400,000.
I didn't know the number was that high.
Yeah. And so, I mean, even if you've just got it concealed to the upper echelon of leadership within that program, still, how many managers do you have to manage 400,000 people that would have to be in on something like that to know that it was
Not
fake?
real.
And keeping that a secret for, God, it was what, 69 the first time they landed? Yeah. So you're going on 60 years at this point to keep it a secret for that long, and no one associated with the Apollo program has been reported to come out and be a whistleblower. It's all third-party sources that are coming out and saying, oh, well, I saw XYZ.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, another one there is that at the time we were competing very heavily with Russia. Russia had an exceptionally robust spy network within the United States and around the world. They were very good at gathering intelligence. And if we had hoaxed it and they had known that we had hoaxed it, they would have immediately started providing evidence that it was a hoax, and Russia never called us out on it.
So you believe they did?
I think we went to the moon. Yeah.
I feel like we should take a tally after each one. Raise your hand if you believe they went to the moon. 3 for 3, guys.
Okay. Callie?
Now, I'm going to lighten things up a little bit, and it's about to get hairy.
Uh-oh.
And what I mean by that is I'm going to Bigfoot. So,
of course you are.
I mean, why not? You want to talk about some of the greatest conspiracy theories in history. How would we skip Bigfoot? So, over decades, there have been all kinds of stories of large, hairy, human-like creatures, and they exist in lots of different cultures. We have Sasquatch in North America. In the Himalayas, they have a Yeti. In Florida, they have the skunk ape, which I didn't know was a thing.
Ooh.
Skunk egg.
Skunk egg.
Okay. But the origin of the name Bigfoot actually comes from 1958 when a construction worker in California found large footprints on a construction site, and the story spread in newspapers. Bigfoot, Bigfoot. And there has been lots of cultural significance in terms of TV shows and movies and even monster trucks talking about Bigfoot and kind of taking and riffing off of that concept and running with that, folklore staples that have perpetuated this whole mythical creature of Bigfoot.
I mean, I saw a video one time. It sure looked like a big hairy monster.
Yeah, I saw Harry and the Hendersons too.
There's a town in California that is dedicated to Bigfoot tourism. Got to make that money, you guys. Called Willow Creek,
They
California.
ever have sightings?
I mean,
You've got to.
yeah. I mean, but they also have a toaster that makes Jesus toast. I mean, of course there are sightings. So the most famous evidence of Bigfoot existing was a film in 1967 that critics have come out and said it's just a man in a hairy suit. It's just a man in a suit. It's not really an actual creature running around. There have been there have been no physical remains, no DNA, no bones anywhere in any of these places that have ever claimed to see a Bigfoot, to have a Bigfoot sighting, that Bigfoot actually exists. They haven't found any evidence anywhere of Bigfoot ever existing to showcase that he is.
It depends on who you ask.
Died. I guess that's true.
That
I guess
DNA
that's
does
true.
sound like a big deal.
So, like I
Are
said,
you sad?
I
that
think I'm
there's no
probably
Bigfoot?
a little bit relieved.
Yeah, I think I'm relieved because, like, I remember watching like History Channel Bigfoot shows growing up and just being absolutely terrified.
Really?
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those like heebie-jeebie things, like kind of one of those where like it's always the music and the mood that they put it in. And they're always talking about these encounters that would have been like close encounters with, oh, this guy left his cabin door open or they're throwing rocks at people. And I mean, here's the thing. You're a 7 or 8-year-old little boy home alone and it's dark outside, and maybe not even home alone, but you're
Sure to say.
alone and it's dark outside and you kind of live like we grew up in an area where we didn't really have, our closest neighbor was 400 yards away. Like there was a little bit of a distance.
Yeah. And lots of trees.
Us. And lots of trees. So you've got this crazy imagination, and the History Channel has just convinced you that the skunk egg roams from the Keys in Florida all the way to Texas, and
gonna get you.
And we don't know enough about it, and maybe it is herbivorous, but we know that most primates aren't. And it's 8 feet tall and strong enough to rip you in half just because it's a primate. I mean, that's kind of a horrifying thing to imagine about as a little kid. And so
your mother should not have let you watch those shows.
Somebody needs to talk to her.
Tell her.
Your dad probably did it.
Oh yeah, we're both asleep.
I definitely remember growing up and like being afraid of something under the bed. And so if I jumped to the bed, that would save me. They couldn't get me that way. And if I'm alone now, I can't say that I haven't jumped on the bed just in case. Or you can't let any of your limbs hang over because they could grab you.
I don't want my feet or my hands hanging off that you could grab me from underneath.
No windows in your bedroom. That was the solution.
There's always a closet. You
know?
But
the closet's in the middle of the house. Bigfoot can't get from the woods into my closet without coming through a window and through one of the doors into my bedroom.
That's true.
So
but he could have come through my window, snapped me in half, and snuck into your closet.
Yeah, but I would have heard him do that.
Maybe.
I see.
Maybe.
Got it.
Not.
Got it. So really quick, before we move on, I wanted to chat about a couple of reasons why people love conspiracy theories. I was looking at some things. We as a culture, we talked about this in both books and our TV episode about romanticizing things and My Favorite Murder and all of these things that we've kind of made look great, these kind of scary things that we've made look great. And I think that really truly has to do with the desire as humans for mystery, first and foremost. It's fun, it's imaginative, it's exciting to think about what could be or what could be different that you don't know about. Also, we have a sense of control that we can think about those things and take hold of them and moderate and modulate them to what fits our brains and brain patterns and things like that. And also, like I've said on several occasions, connection, a physical hug and the emotions that come with that connection. And so there were a couple of points that I wanted to chat about. Pattern recognition, your brain connecting the dots even when there is no pattern. I feel like that plays a huge role.
That when Cole was talking about the science of the moon landing. I am not a scientist, so I don't think about, I'm using what I know about my surroundings to generate what I think about those things.
Sure. But there are other people who have different perspectives and different knowledges and different skill sets than you have. So they're thinking about things really differently. I'm reading a book right now that I think it's called something about 101 essays that will leave you questioning everything.
Oh, great.
It's not bad though, but it's really fascinating because you're sitting there thinking about, oh, I've never thought about it that way. I've never put it in that perspective. I've never seen it from that vantage point. And I think that we talked about this the other day about something else. Our brains are really, really, really good at lying to us. I don't actually know the answer, so I'm just going to make something up so that I can convince you that this is what's real, even though it's not real. I just would rather do that than confess that I don't know. And the moment that those patterns kind of start getting ingrained into our minds, we're not very good at always saying, is that really real? Is that really true? Is that what this really means? And so I think that that pattern recognition is really fascinating.
I think it's part of our problem right now is that, and the more I read, the more I am convinced that our brains lie to us on a regular basis because they interpret something and it's almost like that broken record that they see that, they interpret it, and that becomes reality. And it may not have anything to do with reality. And so I see us doing that, and I would say I see it on when you talk about our divisiveness, because I think, and I ask myself this question almost daily, am I seeing things because that's how I've seen them, or where is reality? And I think the older I get, the less I am convinced that there is a way to recognize what is truth. And so I think our brains just get caught up in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking very generally, we're just a bunch of big dumb monkeys. Yeah, a couple of us figured out how to use computers, but we are absolutely 100% running on hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of evolutionary instinct. And our brains specifically will create scary things from the unknown to protect us. I mean, it is a biological evolutionary result of the way our brains are developed. Hey, there's a dark, shadowy cave wrapped in thorns. I don't know what's in there. Maybe I shouldn't go in there, because you know what? For millions of years has been in those dark, scary caves with thorns around the entrance. Lions, tigers, and bears, oh my.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
Protecting
and you have
ourselves.
We're talking about a completely different kind of, almost a conspiracy theory, almost not, but there's this idea that is referred to as the uncanny valley, where the pattern recognition in our brains seems to pick up on things that look almost human, but not quite, and have a instinctually driven fear of those things because they're just not quite right.
I'll say my brain can wake up in the middle of the night and make any tree, any bush, any lamppost into a human. Outside of a window, I can turn it into anything. I have to very actively kind of power through that and say, Callie, that isn't real. That isn't true. That is a tree. It's a tree that has been there for 20 something years. You know that tree. Don't turn it into something else just because you're scared. But so then the next one is the desire for control. It makes people feel like they understand that hidden truth. It makes you think, oh, I'm in control of it because I know that that's what it is. And I don't think that that's necessarily true or real. Like we were just talking, our brains are really good at lying. That false sense of security tends to get skewed sometimes in our favor, what we think is our favor, but in reality, it's not true.
We're kind of screwed. Our brains lies to us. Our country lies to us. I'm a little...
Welcome to the world, little buddy. It's no picnic.
It's no picnic.
Adulting is hard. The last point that I wanted to bring up is the shared beliefs create tight-knit communities. So if we all decide together, hey, Bigfoot is real, this is something that we need to be scared of, that we then go and start perpetuating those things to our children and saying, hey, you need to look out when you're ever in the woods and there's a big hairy man that da-da-da-da-da. You need to be worried about that. You need to be nervous about all of that.
All right. We've kind of touched on some of the, I would say probably some of the upper echelon of more broad-based conspiracy theories, but let's move into some more kind of pop culture conspiracy theories, some celebrity conspiracy theories, if you will. Mom, you were telling me about one that you had heard about Elvis still being alive. Talk me through that.
Well, okay, first off, I have to say, Elvis died when I was in high school. My best friend was an Elvis fan, and I thought she was going to die when it came out that he had died. And she refused. She refused to believe that it was true and went for a really, really long time saying, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. And so
you weren't a big Elvis fan?
Oh, no, I grew up on Elvis.
Just not as big as her?
No, I mean, this went beyond fandom.
Infatuation.
Yeah, this went a little bit deeper than that. She was really, really serious about Elvis. And my mom loved Elvis. I mean, we watched all of Aloha from Hawaii's and all of the movies and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, she was very devastated when the news came out that he had died. And so, I mean, there's lots of things there. There are people who say, uh, I think one of the funny ones is that his middle name on his grave marker is misspelled. So that must mean that he's not really there. He's not really dead.
It's a
There was
different Elvis Aaron Presley.
Yeah, but with that only one A. There was a lot about and there are reports that he wanted to work for the CIA and that he was really, and it's kind of funny, anti-drug scene. And so he thought that he had things to contribute there. And so part of that is that they had to get rid of him so that he could go undercover for the CIA.
There was a movie that came out about that in the last probably 5 or 10 years. That movie was something.
I didn't see it.
Elvis and Nixon, I think, is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah. Where he tried to go into the White House with his guns. He wanted to give the president some of his guns, and they kind of freaked out because he was walking in with guns. I do remember parts of that one.
Yeah, that movie was nuts. But yeah, then he was kind of trying to show off to Nixon to try and get him to make him a special agent. Weird movie.
Yeah, but some basis in story.
Truth.
Prior stories. I mean, there's lots of things that said he did, and I think it was because he really was a well-loved figure. People went wild
Didn't want
for
to
him.
believe it.
But the truth is, there's no DNA evidence that goes against that it was him. And while there were inconsistencies with the autopsy, they kind of have been able to justify some of those. Now, the family's supposed to release the actual report in 2027, so we have 2 years to wait for that. But I mean, the truth of it was, he wasn't old by any means, but he certainly had a family history of heart disease. He had gained significant weight. He was under a lot of pressure. I'm not sure that he was a really happy guy at that point in time. And so while I think a lot of us wish that hadn't happened, there's just nothing that really supports that he's still walking around undercover for the CIA.
I mean, at this point, he might be a little too old to be undercover for the CIA.
Yeah.
But in a very similar vein, I was doing some looking this week on the murder of Tupac Shakur, and there is a pretty significant following of fans that, since his alleged murder in 1996, have believed that Tupac is still alive and that he used this attempted murder, maybe even planned this scene as a way to escape Hollywood and the limelight.
I mean, I kind of get that. I can imagine it being overwhelming.
Yeah, but do you really have to fake your own death to do that? So here are kind of some of the...
I mean, maybe if you're Tupac.
I mean, yeah, maybe if you're Tupac, but here are kind of some of the factors that people have provided that they're trying to use to substantiate these claims. So Tupac was shot in 1996, leaving Club 662 in Las Vegas with the CEO of his record label, Suge Knight. In a caravan of like 10 or 12 other cars, a white Cadillac pulls up next to them at a stoplight and shoots 14 times into the car, hitting Tupac in the chest twice, in the arm once, and once in the thigh. And nobody else got hurt. And, Suge Knight was grazed by a bullet. But other than that, no significant injury. Then he goes to the hospital and is proclaimed dead like 6 days later of cardiac arrest. So there are a lot of claims made to substantiate that Tupac is still alive somewhere, like the wording that his mom used. Basically, the phrasing is vague enough that her sentence doesn't like explicitly state that he's dead. So that's one of the claims that they use to substantiate that he's still alive. That his stage name, Machiavelli, is a reference to Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote about faking your own death. and some discrepancies. Apparently the autopsy had him at like 225, which Tupac wasn't a big guy for 5'9". 225 is really heavy. He's probably closer to about 165 walking around weight. But a lot of people also point to the fact that there were so many albums that were released under his name posthumously that no one could have had that much of a backlog, and that there have been photos of him in Cuba, and that he already had an aunt who was in exile in Cuba at the time. And then in like the mid 2000s, or maybe the early teens, this guy came out and made YouTube videos saying that he was on a security team for Tupac, and that night after the shooting never went to the hospital or anything, but they smuggled him out of Las Vegas and onto a plane to Barbados, and claims that he has both video and audio recordings of Fidel Castro guaranteeing his safety into Cuba. And none of those have ever surfaced.
Why would you want to go to Cuba?
Because it's not the United States.
Yeah.
But it's very poor.
Not when you're Tupac.
Not if you're Tupac.
I mean, can you get to that money if you're dead?
They take the U.S. dollar everywhere.
Yeah, but that's not
Cash.
what I mean. I mean,
but it could have gone to his aunt or gone somewhere else. I mean, there are lots of ways that could have. Money is not the issue here.
Flown on a private plane with U.S. cash,
stacks
and
of
exchanged
cash.
it in Barbados.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And maybe he didn't want to live this extravagant lifestyle. Maybe he just wanted to be left alone to write his poetry and contemplate the writings of Niccolo Machiavelli.
But then he supposedly recorded a bunch of that would draw attention to that.
Yeah. And so the YouTube videos from the alleged security team member have all been taken down. He's never been able to provide any of this evidence to anyone that I was able to find. So there's really no credible evidence that has been located so far to show that Tupac actually really is and truly still alive. And
well, who was in the Cadillac?
We'll get there.
Okay.
The working theory is right now, a couple of hours prior to his death, he got into a fight in a hotel lobby with Anthony, or I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he got into a fight. That's a recorded, it's on closed circuit CCTV of this fight that happened in the hotel lobby. And the theory is that this guy was involved in the shooting, and he was questioned by police at one time, not very heavily, but then he died 2 years later from an unrelated shooting. But
unrelated.
I mean, going back in an unrelated gang-related shooting.
Okay.
Because he was apparently a representative of a Crip gang. Whereas Tupac was supposedly a Blood.
We're educating our mother on the history of Tupac Shakur. I love this.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Did you know that he was a gang member?
Allegedly.
But just to kind of address some of these things, I kind of hope Tupac is still alive, because there was a time in my life where I really enjoyed listening to Tupac's music. I think he was a really, really smart guy. I think he was also a guy who may have been a little bit too smart for his own good in certain scenarios, or maybe a little bit too smart for some of the situations that he got put in. But one thing to know is that as an artist, Tupac was incredibly prolific when it came to writing and recording. So he had an immense backlog of recorded material that had never been released. And really, as far as I'm aware, he didn't really plan to release. So the first posthumous album that came out, the Illuminati, the 7-Day Theory, was intended to be his final album. And then he was going to kind of step away from music because he had kind of started an acting career. But after his death, both his estate and the record label, there was still a demand for Tupac. And they had this huge backlog of content. And so there's no more Tupac there to say, yeah, you can't release this. This isn't the album that I want to release. So they're able to kind of stitch all of that content together and release it in several subsequent posthumous albums. Just to kind of give an update, the Las Vegas PD in 2023 actually executed a search warrant and made an arrest in relation to Tupac's murder from 1996, almost 30 years later. Yeah. And so there's still a man in custody in relation to this, Kefi D, who at this point has been alleged is the person who set up the hit, who planned the hit on Tupac that night. Apparently, he had some sort of relationship with the guy that he'd gotten in a fight with at the hotel. And so he's given a couple of different stories as to what happened. But in one story, he was in the car and someone else shot Tupac. And then in another story, he was 300 miles away in Los Angeles and didn't know anything about it. And so anyways, he is still currently being held and has a trial scheduled for February of next year. So maybe we'll find out a little bit more then. Pac, I hope you're out there, man. If you're not, miss you, dude. Your music was great. This is one of those ones where I'm a little bit torn on. Like, could I see Tupac doing something like that? Absolutely. But there's also not really anything to back that up. So maybe not.
Do you know what they found over that 30 years that
Led them to the new guy.
led him to the new guy?
I think he had like made a confession or something.
I thought he had admitted it in a couple of like a book or an interview or something.
Yeah, like a book or a podcast or something. Yeah.
Interesting.
He wanted to be known as the guy who killed Tupac.
Well, that kind of gives it more credence too, though, doesn't it? If you
Gives
know that you're
what more
gonna
credence? The fact that he is or isn't dead?
that he is dead. If I guess
Does
no,
it though? I mean, I could
Yeah.
go
I mean,
and
if
say
this
that
guy
I
is-
killed him, but that doesn't mean I did.
If this guy comes back with 2 or 3 different stories so far, how do you know
Yeah.
which one is real?
Well, I guess I was thinking if you are willing to admit that you committed a crime publicly,
Well, now that
Even-
he's spent the last 2 years in prison, he's kind of backtracked a little bit.
I think that motivation could be gained through
yeah,
a couple of different avenues.
interesting. Okay, well, look at me learning stuff.
So, speaking of music, I was made aware of a theory about Avril Lavigne. Do you guys remember Skater Boy and things like that?
He wasn't good enough for her.
Thanks, Cole. Always there to back us up.
Now he's a superstar.
Slamming on his guitar. I mean,
Nailed it.
just sing along. So I was made aware of this a few years after it kind of started. There is a theory that Avril Lavigne has been replaced by her body double that was used in a couple of other things that she already knew and had hired for a couple of other things to get out of the paparazzi's way and to throw them off their scent and everything. If I remember correctly, I want to say it had something to do with like she killed herself in a hotel room and her manager and her mom got together and were like, hey, this is too much of a moneymaker. We cannot let this happen. So let's go grab that body double and we're just going to pretend that she's Avril now.
So they hid the death,
They hid the death. They covered up the death. And then
and we have no proof of that.
No proof of that. So the internet kind of, I think it started on Reddit that all of this is what happened. She was replaced by this body double named Melissa. It's not really her. Here's a picture of her from 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And here's Melissa now. And they're circling, okay, here's the crow's feet on her eyes, or here's how her nose is a little different shape, or here's how her chin is different. And so those are kind of interesting to look at and see. I mean, but also, you guys, I think if you were to take a picture of me and look at it from 2 or 5 or 10 years ago, it would also look different, but neither here nor there. And then the other part of it that people have kind of helped lend credence to this concept is that her music changed. It evolved. She went from being more angsty skater boy to more poppy and more girly. And that just wasn't Avril Lavigne. That isn't who she is. That's not what she stands for. And so all of this has changed since she died in 2003.
You know, I think that is pretty presumptuous to say your musical style can't change. It's just not like
You're not allowed to.
it's not possible that you could have changed the idea of the art that you were creating.
Yeah.
That is just kind of silly to me. And, you know, this is one that I've noticed a lot through just doing some research, some basic research into these this week, particularly with stuff like the moon landing, is that, and flat earth too, there has been content that has come out that is just completely made up satirical content in relation to this, and people will pick it up and run with it and use it like it is fact.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to look at it and say, that's like trying to use South Park to back up your research. It's meant to be funny. It's meant to be satire.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I felt about all the crazy laws when we were going through those the other day. You have to have a hunting permit to set a mousetrap. Like, what? That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
And so I totally agree with you, Cole. I just think that we have taken fun, we have taken silliness and gone too far with a lot of things. And some of these conspiracy theories are exactly that. That's how
Parents,
this
hug
Avril
your
Lavigne
kids
one.
more.
Yeah.
Give them the attention they need.
Yeah.
There's a gullibility factor that's involved there too. I mean, and we've kind of just touched on this. If I'm not a scientist, I'm not thinking about all of the things about the moon landing that might be different. And so if I want to believe the flag was waving and, that's got to be a big deal, and here's the other side of it. It's especially bad now with social media, but you hear pieces of it. You don't hear the whole story or look at the whole story. You just hear these little pieces, just enough to entice you and kind of warm you up and get you going. And we are horrible about passing on unverified, incomplete information. And so we do this, and then all of a sudden we're shocked that there's this crazy story out there about, Avril Lavigne's body double is now. But
I bet it would be pretty sweet to be Melissa, though.
Well, maybe, but maybe not. What if you could never be yourself again? If you've got people that are in that group that are serious enough about your golden ticket that they would ignore somebody dying, that they wouldn't want to even acknowledge somebody dying, do you really want to be there?
But also, you guys, the supposedly real Avril Lavigne is still alive. So
I thought
if
she died.
No, that's part of the conspiracy theory, is that she died and they replaced her. She's still alive. So how does she feel about all of this? I don't understand how that even makes any sense. Guys, I'm over here. It's still me. Like, how do you go and prove that you're you when people have decided that you're not you anymore?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. If the conspiracy theory is true, she is alive and performing just differently.
Yes.
And can't and is being assumed to be Melissa.
Right.
I was not tracking with you.
Sorry. I mean,
My
but
fault.
that goes back to what we were talking about in the Luigi Mangione episode. This is the illusory truth effect. We have decided that this is fact because I heard it somewhere, or because I've decided, or that's all that I know. So that's a fact. And that just isn't real. And it becomes really, really dangerous really fast. That's scary.
Yeah, I don't see how you can take a look at any of these and not, like, I could see how you could take a look at the moon landing and say, yeah, I think it's possible, but I don't have any concrete evidence to say that it was faked. So maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Until you really have something concrete, I just think it's kind of silly to go out on that limb and say, I think the earth is flat. Like, that is just absolutely bonkers to me. I think
I can't see the end of it.
Aren't real. I mean, as someone who has,
I love this one.
As someone who has handled live birds, who has handled dead birds, who has hunted birds and handled them, I can assure you birds are biological creatures. They are not robots. Now, could there be some? Are there some? Almost certainly. In fact, I've seen some drones that do a pretty good imitation of a bird in flight from a distance. But you get up close and you can tell this is a drone.
Yeah.
This is not a bird. And so that one is pretty fun. That one's really interesting. That's kind of one of our more modern conspiracy theories. That one started in like 2017, really kind of to mock conspiracy theories. And going right back to that example, it's satire, and people picked it up and ran with it. I've
But
got
I
a
think you-
friend who
I think you need to explain what it is. It's not just that birds aren't real, it's that they're spying on us for the government.
yeah, birds are robots built by the government to spy on us. Always have been.
Yeah.
Since forever, since like 50s or something. All birds in the world were eliminated and replaced with
Drones, security drones.
or that they never actually existed, and everything you've ever seen that is old depicting a bird is actually propaganda.
Right.
I've
I mean,
eaten
and
some
it's-
pretty good quail that didn't qualify.
I mean, I'm saying, how many of these people that think birds aren't real eat chicken? What is chicken?
Yeah.
It's extra crispy when it's got microchips inside.
Yeah, I guess so. Talking about those microplastics. I mean, again, it's that example of, and I have a buddy who talks about it all of the time. And I think he knows it's satire and just thinks it's funny to look like someone who believes it. But it's one of those things
Is
like,
it, though?
I don't know, man. You
I
sure?
mean, I can
'Cause-
see some places that you would go that you meet up with that person that you just think, oh, I'm going to go deep into this and just be right here. And what your dad told his secretary something one time. Do y'all remember that story? He told her, oh, I wish I could remember, but he came in and told her, and she believed it hook, line, and sinker. And then she came in about a week later, just livid with him because she discovered that he'd lied to her. And he thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
I mean, I got Ryan one day. We have a cowhide rug that is underneath our dining table. And he said something about, oh, I wonder whose brand this is because it's a real cowhide rug. And I was like, oh, it's our family brand. And he was like, no, it's not. I was like, yeah, this is one of the cows like that we raised growing up. And I had him also hook, line, and sinker. And I think he finally called you, Mom, and was like, is this really a cow that y'all raised? And I think I finally had to break it to him. And I kind of felt bad at this point. And I'm like, no, this is not our family cow. I mean, I'm sure that somebody has their cow's hide on the floor, but I don't. And people are gullible sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and one of the reasons I say I think my friend does it as satire to just kind of drive people up a wall is he and I have very similar builds. We've both worn a beard for a long time. We're both lightheaded. And so we just tell people that we're brothers all of the time, and everybody believes it. So people will ask me
growing up.
Yeah. People will ask me, hey, I haven't seen your brother in a while. How's he? Oh yeah, no, he's doing good. And Cole and Colin, it makes sense.
You
And
didn't
so
know you had an
God, I
extra
don't think I
kid.
could do two of you. I love you, but
yeah.
I had a friend when I was young that, and I don't even think we looked alike, but I don't even know how this, I'm sure she started the story because I would have been too shy to do it back then, but started the story that, we were split at birth and my parents took me and her parents took her and we found each other, in middle school. And people believed it. Totally different personalities. I mean, completely.
I get into the logistics of that. So which of your mothers birthed you? How did this work? Whose father was the impregnator? How did
It
that
was
come
always,
about?
why did you get separated at birth was generally the question. And I think it came down to finance. Her parents couldn't afford two kids. So I think is what I'd have to go back and ask her
I
that.
mean, with your
It was
family,
a big story back then.
You didn't look like your family, so you could have been adopted.
You know what? I am not convinced to this day. I asked my grandmother one time if I was adopted because I do not look like my family. And I think it's even harder for me because if you look at the three of us, there are resemblances here.
Oh, yeah.
So if I am what do you call that called? The recessive gene, you guys got it.
Oh, yeah.
But the only thing that my grandmother would answer for me is that I know your mother carried you. She would not tell me.
I can look at a picture of your parents and see resemblance.
Really?
I suck at those things. I can't look at any children. There are a couple of photos of you when you're a little girl and me when I'm about the same age that we look identical.
Yeah.
But I don't look at the two of us right now and say, oh yeah, we definitely look alike. I don't ever see it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I see it if I'm looking at a picture that it just pops up, there'll be things where I'll go, what was I doing there? And it'll be you.
That's
No,
funny.
it's funny going back to Colin and I. That's kind of one of the things that, like, just a little bit of wordplay when somebody like, "Are y'all really brothers?" And was like, "Yeah, he's got a different mom and I have a different dad." And just
And they're not quick
just
enough because their
try it
brains are lying to
every
them.
time. Yeah, it's great.
Gosh.
I love it. I didn't know, Boo, that I had another kid.
Yeah, you have several, but
Oh, okay.
because
Good to
Nate and
know.
I get asked all the time if we're brothers. I mean, all the time.
It's funny.
It happened more when we both had long hair, but we still get it pretty regular. Are you guys brothers? And we're like, oh yeah, different mom, different dad. But
Funny.
and just kind of another. This one, I don't know. This one is another one of those ones that I'm a little bit torn on because I remember thinking about this. I mean, years ago. This was another kind of internet conspiracy theory around Mattress Firm, but. Have you ever just kind of been there? There was a spot here in town where there were two mattress firms that were a block from each other. And then there was a third one that was maybe 5 blocks away. And why are there so many mattress firms? And so this one was probably like early 2010s as well. This internet conspiracy came out that Mattress Firm was a money laundering operation for like the mob. Because there were so many mattress firms, and apparently it's not just us here in our town, it's all over the country, that there are just a ton of mattress firms that are way too close to each other for apparently no good reason. Because, I mean, I've been into Mattress Firm a few times in my life, and there's never anybody in there.
Are the
Why do you?
mattresses lumpy?
What?
Well, if you're hiding money in the mattress,
They're not hiding money, they're laundering money.
but you got to have a place to put laundered money.
Yeah,
So if
the
you put
bank.
it in the
That's why you
mattress-
launder it. That's the whole point of laundering.
Stop it, Callie.
You're
I
not
was
you're
being
not trying to
funny, too.
hide it. You're trying to hide where it came from. You
Okay.
want to not hide it so that you can use it.
I got you.
But that one I feel like has at least some like logic behind it that certainly makes sense. How often do you buy a new mattress?
You're supposed
Once
to every
every-
8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say every 5 to 10. So why do you need 3 mattress firms within a 10-block radius of each other in a mid-sized suburban town? And apparently this was just happening all across the country. So since then, Mattress Firm has come out and supposedly admitted to mismanagement and that they did a poor job of planning their store locations. And that's part of the reason that they filed for
Gosh.
Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So they've come out and not admitted to money laundering, but admitted to mismanagement. And I don't know. I feel like on this one, there might have been a little grain of truth, at least possible, that maybe Mattress Firm was a money laundering organization.
So this one's a little bit more out there. Maybe fewer grains of truth, in my personal opinion. But do you guys remember it was started during the beginning of the pandemic? About Wayfair was using items on their website. Remember, this is home goods and home decor and things like that. Items on their website were way overpriced for these furniture pieces that had names instead of it being the brown hutch or the green credenza. It was names like Naraya and Yuritsa and their human names. And they had crazy prices on them. Here's $10,000 for a Mariah throw pillow. And these cabinets, that was the other thing, these big like industrial
the
cabinets. And so they decided that Wayfair was trafficking children. And so they were naming these items on their website. Hey, this is the Naraya cabinet. And if you want to buy Naraya, the child, just go buy this cabinet online on our website and we will send you Naraya the child. And how out of hand all of this got really fast.
I feel like there's a pretty big plot hole there, because what if you just really, really like the Yuritsa industrial cabinets and you want to put them in your shop? And I feel like
Yeah.
that would happen and kids would just start popping up.
Or you wouldn't get it and everybody would be mad because they didn't get the cabinet.
Well, I think that was part of it. So you're not buying a $10,000, like what percentage of people are buying a $10,000, a $25,000 cabinet, an industrial bland cabinet like you would see in a 1995 doctor's office kind of thing? Who's going to pay all of that? So that's why we're safe, because nobody's actually going to buy it unless you know.
Yeah, but people will buy it. That's the thing.
Maybe
Was there
so.
ever any proof or investigation or?
There was absolutely. So it started through social media and gained traction with Reddit and TikTok and QAnon and things like that.
Oh, all those really legitimate, believable sources.
Hey.
Right.
Hey,
Right.
You better watch it, lady.
So they talked about how social media algorithms played a role in amplifying these theories really quickly, and people were spending more time online because they were locked down in their homes. And so they saw them and just kind of took them and run with them. A couple of them didn't match up with names of children who were missing, and then those children were found later, totally unrelated. Experts in human trafficking and child trafficking came out and said, this is distracting from the actual problem at hand. Do not amplify these kinds of things. Wayfair immediately came out and said the high prices of these weird items that shouldn't have been that way was all due to a glitch or incorrect product listings. And the names were algorithm generated names or product identifiers and had nothing to do with real children. And there was zero evidence to support these trafficking claims. And they came out immediately and said, hey, this is completely false. But I mean, it got so weird.
How would you
so
like to be
fast.
that CEO that this is
I'm
your
good.
marketing problem? This is your publicity problem.
Less than being the CEO, I don't want to be the person who has to come and bring that news to them and be like, hey, this
By
is
the
gonna
way,
sound kind of weird, but we're going to have to deal with this. People think that we're trafficking children with our industrial cabinets. You want to go tackle that? Thanks, boss.
oh my gosh.
What?
No, I don't want to be any of those.
So we've gone through a whole bunch of different ones, and I wanted to see, we kind of talked about them a little bit as we went. Are there any that you are questioning more than you did before? Maybe that really could be the truth. The government's lying to you.
I mean,
Besides
like I said,
birds, we know you guys
I-
don't believe birds are real.
I hope Pac is out there. That would be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, just for him, like, I hope he's out there, but I don't know. I don't think he is, but I hope he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel like that at least has a reason as to why. But I can't come in and be like, I hope that the CIA was involved in JFK's assassination.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, what's the motivation behind wanting them to be real?
It just makes you discredit our government even more if that's really the truth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but if it is the truth, wouldn't you want to know it?
if it is the truth, we've got even bigger problems than I think we have, and I think we have some huge problems. So I'm not sure I do want to know if you really want to know the truth.
I
I would-
mean,
I would
60
want to know so
years
that
ago?
we can address it,
yeah.
so that we can identify that as a problem and say,
Yeah.
we cannot let this happen anymore.
Well, and start to be able to determine who and what you can trust, what's real.
But you guys, I mean, you look at this, Obama wasn't his birth certificate and all of the things that are out there now. We're not going to stop this. And I don't think there's any way.
But
because
shouldn't
there's-
you want to?
Well,
And that's coming from me.
You have a
yeah,
point.
I mean, I think you should want to, but I think you have to be realistic and know. I mean, it's just like your friend. He enjoys making that go on, keeping it alive. So we're not going to get rid of this. And some of these don't
Yeah,
really harm anybody.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Some of them don't. Some of them do.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I still
I
feel
mean, I
bad
get
for
ya.
Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, like,
I know. I'm really curious now. So what does Melissa say? Is Melissa still around?
I don't know. I don't know if Melissa ever actually existed.
Well, I thought she had a body double.
I don't
that's
know,
the
man.
theory. Okay, the theory is that Avril Lavigne died and was replaced by her mom and agent or manager or whatever with a body double. The theory states that the body double's name was Melissa.
I misunderstood. I thought she had been performing body double for Avril Lavigne and they took her in when this occurred.
That's the theory.
Okay.
That's the theory. But
see, I'm not good at these.
I mean, it goes back to that whole thing about my line about always telling the truth. If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about keeping up with the lie. You don't have to mess with any of that. Just tell the freaking truth, guys. It's so much easier for everybody. It may be hard. Come on.
Yes, sometimes you think you are telling the truth.
I started to say sometimes the truth is just as weird.
There's
Also
nothing wrong
true.
with weird. We can get over weird. We can get past and get through weird.
No, I don't really know how we made it through this without bringing this up yet, but you have a question here, Cal, that is, what's one that is too fun not to believe, or our personal takes on which ones are real? Do you guys think aliens are real?
I like movies about aliens, but I don't think that they're real.
There's no ET.
Interesting.
No.
Ghosts?
I think that statistically speaking, like mathematically speaking, there has to be. Like maybe not in encounters here on Earth with aliens, but I think that there's got to be life out there somewhere else in the universe.
Maybe.
Are they smarter than us?
Lord, I hope so.
I think there probably are some that are and some that aren't. I mean, because here's the thing. If a cow developed on Mars, it would still be an alien, but it wouldn't be a very smart alien.
Well, that's a weird thought.
Why would they be aliens? Or are we their aliens?
Yes, the answer to both of those questions is yes. The term alien just means from somewhere else.
Right, but they're not aliens to them.
But they would be aliens to us. It would be an alien cow.
So you could have a moon cow and an earth cow, and they just have to be different because they were
from different places.
Yeah, they had different. Their evolutionary track came to the same result, but that doesn't mean that it was the exact same track. They would have
a different
developed
mom and a different dad.
Yeah, they would have developed under different circumstances.
We're off track. Speaking of,
I don't know that we really are.
We're in Looneyville.
That's what conspiracy
Welcome
theories
to conspiracy
are.
Theories.
Point made.
Tell me your weird thought for this week.
Okay, this was just, I didn't know about this. CBS premiered the $64,000 question 1955, and everybody loved it. It was an instant national phenomenon. There were 47 million people in 1955 watching it within 10 weeks. Crime rate and movie theater attendance actually dropped because people were watching this game show so much, except then it fell apart. And they found out that the producers were actually picking the winners. They were encouraging them and training them and teaching them, giving them details. You should, mop your brow here or bite your lip here, or you should dress
telling me
this
that
way.
Reality TV isn't reality?
Not in 1955. But y'all, this caused a congressional investigation. Is that funny? We did, and I started to say, we do congressional investigations about a lot of things, but in 1955, we did this, and then it just ticked everybody off because they'd been suckered. There is a whole website about the quiz show scandal. You can, the guy that was the one, he said, a bona fide egghead with enough sex appeal. Charles Van Doren. It's just
In
weird.
relation to what?
Who they picked to groom to be the winner.
All for show. Literally, like, where do you think that phrase even comes from?
Yeah. So, I did not know about this story, but I've never been a big game show. But poor Bob Barker. I mean, sully his reputation now as a game show host.
I don't think it really.
Yeah, just because one game show was, I mean,
not
to say that The Price is Right is 100% real. I'm sure there's some scripting going on there, but.
You think?
I would encourage you to spay and neuter your pets.
I would encourage you to spay and neuter.
You tried to
Okay.
run the man into the ground.
I'm so sorry.
I'm just perpetuating his legacy.
How about our good news story this week?
So our good news story is kind of fun. We have a bit of an update from one of our previous episodes. We talked the other day about hot dogs coming in packs of 10 when hot dog buns come in packs of 8.
Because it's a
And
conspiracy.
it's a
Big
conspiracy.
bread needs to sell more buns.
Yeah.
Well, you discovered that it was more based on weight, that you got so many hot dogs were sold in
Per
links,
pound.
and that you did it by the pound. And so 8 links amounted to about a pound, and that the bread was baked in pans that fit
It would have been 10 links
10
equals
links,
a pound,
and
and common
8,
baking trays
yes,
came with
housed
space
4.
for 8.
Yes, and so there was a legitimate reason behind all of this. But
Or you
I'm
could
here
just
to
make a bigger
report.
pan.
I'm here to report that now you can buy them where they match. 8 links, 8 buns. You
I
can
don't
go to
think
the
you
store.
call hot dogs links. I think they're
I
called
mean,
wieners.
Anyway, you don't have to buy 40 anymore to get an even match. You can go to the store and buy 1 package of
8.
hot dogs.
hot dogs.
She
And
didn't want to say wiener. We should wrap this up quick.
well, you got to tell them
Yeah.
about Kermit first.
The other good thing is that Kermit the Frog from Jim Henson's The Muppets has been tapped to do the commencement speech at the University of Maryland. So this is Jim Henson's alma mater, where he graduated in 1960 with a home economics degree. And he is
What a
commemorated.
strange degree for a man to get.
Yes. And so they were having some issues finding somebody who wasn't going to be canceled or wasn't going to be too political and all of these things. And so they reached out to the world's most famous amphibian, and he has been tapped to do their commencement speech.
I would love to hear Kermit the Frog's commencement speech. I bet
know,
he has
I can't
some
wait.
pearls of wisdom.
It ain't easy being green.
You know what I can't wait for? I can't wait for everybody to come out of the woodwork in the comments on this episode on TikTok and Instagram. I think it's going to be a blast.
I thought you were going to say, I can't wait for this episode to be over. Bye, guys.
Love y'all.
Love y'all.
Love you guys.